Alright, welcome to the Strange North channel. In this video, I'm going to tell you about the very strange case of the disappearance and eventual death of 21-year-old Elisa Lam in 2013. Now, this story didn't happen in Canada, it happened in Los Angeles, California. But Elisa Lam was a Canadian woman, and this case has just always stuck with me. And the video surveillance of Elisa that was released by the LAPD during their search is one of the most disturbing video clips I've ever seen in my life, and it really stuck with me. And I'm just going to jump right into the story. So Elisa Lam was born on April 30th of 1991 in Vancouver, BC, to parents that came from Hong Kong originally. She had been a student at the University of British Columbia, but in early 2013 when she disappeared, she wasn't enrolled at the school. Elisa had been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and depression, and she had been prescribed several medications for her mental health issues. But according to her family, she had no history of suicidal ideations or attempts. However, she had reportedly gone missing briefly before. Elisa also had a history of not taking her bipolar medications, and as a result, on several occasions, she suffered hallucinations that caused her to hide under her bed, and she was hospitalized at least once for one of these episodes. Prior to her disappearance, Elisa also had a couple of online blogs, and in a couple of her posts leading up to her disappearance, she had expressed that she was going through a really tough time and experiencing mental issues. And like a lot of us, Elisa Lam just had a bit of a troubled past. And so in January of 2013, Elisa decided to visit California on her own. She traveled alone and apparently used Amtrak trains and intercity buses to get around. She visited the world-famous San Diego Zoo and posted pictures of it to her social media. And then on January 26, she arrived in Los Angeles, and after 2 days, she checked into the Cecil Hotel near downtown LA's Skid Row. Now, the Cecil Hotel itself has a very dark and interesting history in LA, and many others have done videos on this hotel specifically. It just has a very long history of murders, suicide, hauntings, and involvement with nefarious characters. For example, Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker of California, stayed at this hotel in between his murders. And so this hotel definitely has a reputation, and this is where Elisa Lam decided to stay. Elisa was originally in a shared room on the 5th floor of the hotel, but her roommate soon started complaining of odd behavior. For example, she allegedly left notes for her roommate saying things like, "Go home" and "Go away." And she would lock the door to the shared room, and she would require a password for entry. And so Elisa was eventually moved to a room of her own after a couple days. Apparently right before her disappearance, Elisa visited a live taping of the TV show Conan in Burbank, but she was escorted off the premises by security due to disruptive behavior. Elisa Lam had been calling her parents every day on her trip up until the day she disappeared, and on January 31st of 2013, the day she was supposed to check out of the Cecil Hotel and leave for Santa Cruz, her parents hadn't heard from her and became very concerned, and so they called the LAPD and reported her missing and immediately flew to LA to look for their daughter. The staff at the hotel said that when they saw Elisa, she had been alone. There's a famous LA bookstore called The Last Bookstore. It looks like a really cool place, and the manager at the time, named Katie Orphan, said that Elisa had recently been in the shop, and she said this about Elisa, quote, "She was outgoing, very lively, very friendly," end quote. And she also said that Elisa had bought some books as gifts to take back to her family in BC. The LAPD searched the hotel as much as they legally could. They searched Elisa's room as well as the common areas of the hotel, and they even looked on the rooftop of the building. This is a quote from LAPD Sergeant Rudy Lopez regarding the search of the hotel. Quote, "But we didn't search every room. We could only do that if we had probable cause to believe that a crime had been committed," end quote. On February 6, a week after Elisa had last been seen, the LAPD posted flyers with her image online and around the neighborhood and brought the case to the public's attention through the media. And then after another week of searching to no avail, the LAPD released a video of the last known sighting of Elisa Lam. It was taken on one of the Cecil Hotel's elevators by a video surveillance camera on January 31st. Honestly, this is one of the creepiest videos I've ever seen, and it chills me to this day, and I'm going to show you the full video now. And so obviously her behavior is very strange. It's really weird to me how she's moving her hands around in that very odd way. I also find it strange how the elevator door stays open so long, and then it eventually shuts when she's out of frame for a while. When the LAPD released this video, it went viral across multiple platforms. On the Chinese video sharing site Youku, it got 3 million views and 40,000 comments in the first 10 days. And many people have pointed out that the obscuring of the timestamp in the video is really suspicious, and others claim that parts of the video have been removed and other parts have been slowed down. So during the search for Elisa, Cecil Hotel guests began complaining about low water pressure, and some claimed that their water was colored black and had an unusual taste. And then on the morning of February 19th, a hotel maintenance worker named Santiago Lopez found Elisa's body in one of the water tanks on the roof of the hotel. Through one of the tank's hatches, he could see Elisa floating face up in one of the tanks. The tank was drained and cut open since the maintenance hatch was too small for the equipment needed to remove her body. On February 21st, the LA coroner's office declared her cause of death as accidental drowning, with her bipolar disorder as a significant factor. The full coroner's report was officially released many months later in June of that year. It said that Elisa had been found naked, clothing similar to what she was wearing in the elevator video was floating in the water around her, and it was coated with a, quote, sand-like particulate, end quote. Her watch and room key were also found with her body. Elisa Lam's body was moderately decomposed and bloated, and it was mostly greenish with some marbling evident on her abdomen and some skin separation evident. They said that there was no evidence of physical trauma, sexual assault, or suicide. Toxicology tests showed traces of prescription medications plus non-prescription drugs such as Sinitab and ibuprofen. A very small amount of alcohol was present in her system, but no other recreational drugs were found. Investigators noted that the concentration of prescription drugs in her system indicated that she was under-medicating or had completely stopped taking her medications. The investigation determined that Elisa died of accidental drowning, but it didn't offer an explanation on how she got to the tanks on the roof in the first place. Now, the doors and stairs that access the hotel's roof are locked, with only hotel staff having access to them, and any attempt to force them open would have triggered an alarm. But the hotel's fire escape could have allowed access to the roof, and apparently when police canines were searching the hotel, they lost Elisa's scent trail near a window that connected to this fire escape. Aside from that issue, people also wondered how she got into the water tanks at all. The 4 by 8 feet cylinders were propped up by concrete blocks, and there was no fixed access to them, and hotel employees had to use a ladder to access the tank hatches. And of course, police dogs did search the hotel roof shortly after she went missing, and they could find no trace of her, and to me this is one of the strangest details in this case. Some people think that although Elisa's toxicology report showed an absence of non-prescription drugs, she may have taken drugs that a normal screen would not detect, or she potentially took drugs that may have broken down in her system as her body decomposed in the tank. Additionally, the official autopsy report was questioned based on the limited information that it contained. For example, it doesn't say what the rape kit or fingernail kit results were, or if they were even processed. The report also reported subcutaneous pooling of blood in Elisa's anal area, and her rectum was prolapsed, which some people have suggested was evidence of sexual abuse, but one pathologist noted that this could have been caused by bloating over the course of the body's decomposition. Interestingly, Elisa's cell phone was never found with the rest of her belongings. It wasn't with her body or in her hotel room. And obviously, at least to me, this seems like a key bit of information, and it suggests possible theft or maybe assault, or at the very least some sort of involvement with some other person. After her death, her personal Tumblr blog was updated with new posts multiple times. Now, Tumblr does have a queue option that allows posts to automatically publish themselves when the user is away, and so it's unknown if this is responsible for the post-mortem Tumblr posts or if her phone was stolen. In September of 2013, Elisa's parents filed a wrongful death suit against the Cecil Hotel, claiming that the hotel failed to, quote, inspect and seek out hazards in the hotel that presented an unreasonable risk of danger to Elisa Lam and other guests, end quote. And they sought unspecified damages and burial costs. The hotel said that they couldn't have really foreseen this, and it wasn't even known how Elisa got into the tank in the first place, and this case was eventually dismissed in court in 2015. Interestingly, the circumstances of this case have parallels to a movie from 2005 called Dark Water, and many people have noticed a connection between the two. Dark Water is an American remake of a Japanese film of the same name, and in this movie, a mother and daughter move into a rundown apartment building, and this movie features a dysfunctional elevator, and the mother and daughter experience experience dark water coming out of their faucet. This leads them to the rooftop of the building, where they discover the body of a missing girl in one of the rooftop water tanks. And so many people have just noticed the parallels between the case of Elisa Lam and this movie called Dark Water. And this case has also just inspired a bunch of other creative works. For example, the 5th season of American Horror Story was thought to have been inspired by this case. And so that's the case of the disappearance and eventual death of Elisa Lam. Obviously a very sad and disturbing story, and honestly, to me, that video clip of her around the elevator is one of the most chilling things I've ever seen. And as I stated, the coroner declared her cause of death as accidental drowning, but of course there's just very limited information available. Police initially said that there was no evidence of sexual assault, but the results of the rape kit were never released. And some people have suggested that there was some evidence pointing towards sexual assault, although it's just very inconclusive. I find it interesting that her phone was never found. Her other belongings were all accounted for, but they never found her cell phone. And so to me, this suggests that there was somebody else involved in her disappearance and death. And while I find it plausible that Elisa could have made her way to the rooftop of the hotel using the fire escape, I don't understand how she could have gotten into the water tank by herself. There was no fixed ladder on these tanks, and the hotel staff had to bring a ladder to access the hatch. And there was no ladder found in the area, so I find that detail very unusual. Some people also claim that that video clip that was released had been tampered with. First off, the timestamp has been obscured and blurred out, and many people have said that the video appears to be edited and even slowed down at certain points. And so there's a bit of controversy and debate even just around that video clip that was released. And to be completely honest with you, personally, I just don't believe that Elisa Lam chose to get into one of those water tanks on her own. I think there was someone else involved. She did have a history of mental issues, and she may have stopped taking her medication, and it's very plausible that she was having some sort of mental episode. But to me, it just seems very improbable that this episode would have led her to get up to the roof of the hotel and then somehow struggle into one of the water tanks on the roof. She might have done this on her own, but in my opinion, there was definitely someone else involved. And so ultimately, this is just a very sad and strange case. And my heart goes out to Elisa Lam's family and friends. I can only imagine what it would be like to go through something like that. And I think people just really feel for Elisa Lam. Many of us go through struggles, and nobody deserves to end up like Elisa did. And this is just one of the most unusual cases I've ever learned about. I hope you found that interesting and informative, and if you'd like to watch more of my content in general, please consider subscribing to my channel. I upload at least one new video per week. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next time on the Strange North channel.